everyone.
Hello.
The time is 6:30, so I'll call the work session of mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, August 10th, 2026 to order. We have a quorum, everyone is present. So first we'll go through the regular business meeting, and then we'll come back to the work session agenda. Now the call to order, Bobby Howard, working for the invitation. Anyone like to read the pledge? Brian?
I'll do the pledge.
We'll have the minutes for July 27th to approve. The public hearing item is the opportunity for anyone to come forward and give either written or oral comments to the proposed millage rate of 4.0 mils. We'll come back in the work session, in the work session part, and I was gonna run through the calculation of the taxes and the rollback rate in view of the heavy news coverage that we're getting for our tax increase. So just want to make sure they understands this. The property tax calculation and the rollback rate is one of the hardest things to understand as a new council member. So we're just going to give you a little primer on that here in the work session so you can address comments to this that you hear out. So we'll come right back to that one. But this public hearing item is solely for people to come up and provide comments. There's no vote for us tonight on that. They'll come up, give whatever comments they want to make, sit down, and then we'll close public comment. Okay. We still have 2 more meetings for the public to come in. The first will be, this is the first one. The second one is August 24th at 11:30. That's the one I'll need to make sure that we can have at least 4 of us there for that meeting, because we need to have a quorum. Yeah. Do we know?
It's like a Wednesday?
It's August 24th.
It'll be a Monday.
It's the same Mondays in council.
At 11:30 in the morning.
I can do it.
And I'll still be there.
Okay.
It's very short.
It'll probably be 5 minutes.
Yeah, very, very short.
24, 37.
Yeah, in this meeting, of course I'm going to say this, right? That's what's going to happen. But typically this meeting is called to order and then we adjourn. So as fast as we can do that. So 2 minutes maybe. If someone's there, then it'll go a little longer. But the only one that's been there in the last 6 years has been Virgil. So. Yeah. Okay. And then the next meeting, just make sure you mark your calendar that on August 24th as well, we'll have another one at 6 p.m. So we need to make sure we can have 4 people here at 6. So it'll be before the work session. So if y'all can.
Y'all are voting on it and you're
Yes. Yeah, this is the public hearing. And again, that one will probably be short as well, but we've got to be here. Make sure we can have 4 here. You can be here.
Yes.
CJ, you can be here at 6 on the
Yes, ma'am,
24th.
yeah. I was gonna put it down.
Norman can, I can, Michelle can. Okay. So Carrie, even if you're.
My flight lands at 2, so I should be here.
We'll have 5, so it should be good. Okay. All right. Then we have old business. This is again changing conditions. Jason can go over any last minute questions or concerns at this point, but remember where we left it was we already had the public hearing, so we will not open the floor to public comment. on this. As soon as we open it up, Jason was gonna give a brief.
Yeah,
run
you
through.
can just give it real quick,
the
where we're at,
ordinance.
kind of after everything. Friday sent out, this was part of the, I'm sorry for the document overload, but sometimes I feel like more information is better to kind of sit through it, but, and inside of all that, I also printed you a copy. We're good at whatever, up or down, this is the ordinance we're gonna use, and it basically includes, the only thing that was added, that was different from last time, was the addition of the, if you flip over to Exhibit A, you can see there was some plantings and the bioretention basin pond was moved and basically shielded as much as it could, removed it, made it a little smaller, put up some big plantings around it, so I want to make sure that if it is approved, it's codified with that plan. And then Councilwoman Hetherington asked for a couple of different conditions to kind of add and clarify some of the concerns we had. So I want to just read them real quick, and basically what's on, what you're looking at in the ordinance. So number one is basically that all the variants and conditions from the previous one are remain in full force and effect. And then we add, except for condition number one, which is what this one was, but with different dates. So this is the one that's the catch-all. This is the one that holds them. This is important. That holds them to these documents at a minimum. This is the minimum standards that they have to perform to. We dated the site plan, we dated the elevations, but this is important too, just so you guys feel good about anything that may have been missed as far as detailed conditions or something that could have been shown on the concept plan. This one, I'll read it to you. As with modifications permitted to meet conditions of zoning, which are the conditions you placed on the property, the state, county, and city regulations. So that means regardless of what's shown on this site plan, if they miss something, the county says, well, you've got to do it this way, or we say, well, that wasn't a requested variance. That means that if we miss something here, the code still reigns supreme over everything. That is the ultimate catch-all. That is the catch. If there was a missing sidewalk shown outside, it doesn't matter. That's the catch-all. They have to meet our codes, and just the adoption of this site plan does not absolve them of that. So it's the catch-all. It's been in there for 20-something years. I think it's great. And it makes for any changes to come back to you guys, which is appropriate as well, so that you don't get the bait and switch pulled on you down the road. We did have some concerns about the accessing of parking from the public, since it was limited or on the lower end of the scale. So all ingress and egress access points into the parking lot shall be gated. So they'll have to gate the property. I thought that was a great idea, actually. And the developers agreed to all these conditions. We wanted to, again, set the expectation for the plantings around the bioretention basin. So we put it again in the conditions. And one more time for the decel lanes, any right-of-way improvements that weren't shown appropriately on the concept plan, one more time for the expectation the developer must install decel lanes and any other right-of-way improvements as prescribed by Gwinnett County and the City of Snellville codes and ordinances. And there was some concerns about easements being shown, so just for catch-all there, all the easements must be recorded prior to the issuance of a land storage permit. So kind of wrapped up the concerns, put them in the conditions, and then the rest is as it was a couple weeks ago. So just try to tighten it up and create the expectation for everyone right there in the conditions, and that helps a lot of times, just so everybody's aware of what we're talking about.
Jason, that condition number 6 covers what the gentleman was concerned about at the public hearing.
All easements. If there was an easement that wasn't recorded on like a plat, which is pretty common when you sell property, you don't always have a plat with it. It's usually just the boundaries, and then the easement is attached as the boundaries, and it's not necessarily shown on a plat. But at this point, once we get all that done, there'll be more than just that easement. There'll be stormwater easements. Anytime you take stormwater off of your property and place it onto someone else's, has to be an easement. So there'll be a multitude of easements to record for everything. So yes, sorry.
Any other questions or concerns or thoughts? Jason?
Yeah, I put that because the 5 and 4 story was something that I changed because the buildings are 5-story and their additional building is 4 stories. So there was some concern that it said 5-story. This change in conditions is for a 4-story, but the overall development is a 5-story, so unless, are you okay with that, Jay, 5 and 4 story? I just want to be sure that it captured what was actually happening because there were some concerns about it, so tried to make it a little, maybe I made it more confusing, but I tried to clarify that there are 2 building types. Because the 5-story looked obscure after looking at a 4-story, addition. So I tried to capture that. But with Jay's okay with that, I think it's all right.
Okay, so once we call this item up on the agenda, I'll read through the header like we normally do, and then I'll open for a motion. Once we have a motion in a second, then there can be as much discussion and debate as anyone.
Do you want me to do this too? One
Yeah.
time? Just read it up
Yeah, I
front?
think that'd be great.
I agree.
So, well, I'll have you come up and do that before,
You can read your.
We'll do
like
that.
you normally do. I'll
Yeah.
go and then do that.
yeah. And then if y'all still have questions or concerns, Jason will be there to address them. And I'm assuming the applicant's going to be here as well.
Yeah, but Mr. Curry will be here.
Yeah, did you want to talk about comments?
So this is really just a reminder for everyone. I am not telling any of you all what to say or not say up there. It is just a reminder that in zoning actions, if someone is unpleased with the decision, they can sue, and whatever you all say up there sort of can and will be used against you for the city. So that is just a reminder. Not telling you to say or not say anything. Just a reminder.
It's that
There's a record.
Anything you say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right?
So for me, Jason, I'm sorry. Just because again, I want to ensure that for me to ensure that I'm right for the 32 again, to make that clear for the 32. So as far as the additional 32, they meet all their legal requirements, UDO requirements. Nothing has changed based off what occurred before. The additional 32 is not going to change and make any parking illegal as far as the amount, right?
Correct. All the code parking compliance has been met with the code. Stormwater compliance will be met at the time of permit issuance for sure. Like conceptually, it works. They have to certify it at the time of permitting, but yeah, no new variances. They didn't ask for any variances or any relegation or basically variance from any code. So yes, the answer is yes.
And to kind of address the part of the 32 making it gated was a part of the overall.
I requested that because I am concerned that's the only covered parking on that side of the town center overlay. And I want to protect potential future citizens and their parking.
So that's protecting both the parking on land and parking outside.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the gated with.
Yeah, it's good. It's actually a great
Yeah, I think it's
recommendation
great.
because it keeps the people from using spaces if you feel they're already tight. Then you make sure that the people actually living there are the only people using there, and they're covered. So on that side, it makes sense. Somebody can just jump in there, and take it down, and the other if something else was there. So yeah, it's a good idea.
So the last part was the retention pond, even though there was something, the retention ponds are something that's coded, nullified by the city, but also the state to ensure that that is something that's coded. So the
Yeah.
retention pond shouldn't change anything, so the additional 32 apartments does not change what the retention pond was, or if it,
Now, well, just to clarify, the addition of the 4-story building, and I try not to get too complex, but it creates more runoff. When it was just the parking lot, they were able to catch the grade from the parking lot and send it to underground detention. And you got to think about the way this is stacked. It has to be a little bit lower so it'll flow. And it was just enough water that they were able to move it all down from that small area into the big underground one. Well, what happened when they add, and then it flows out and it serves the whole thing. Well, what happens when they add a little building, the half building, it created a higher curve, so they had to catch a little bit more water. And in order to do that under the parking lot, the tank would have to be too deep to the point where you would have to pump it out. So another way to treat that extra portion is to use the bioretention basin and provide a bunch of examples of those and how they function. So in this case, it did change. So the addition of that building does require an additional treatment strategy, which they proposed to bioretention. They say it works, they run their initial numbers. We don't know for sure until it gets there, but it has to work and it has to look like that, the way you conditioned it. And if it doesn't, then they're back to the drawing. So yeah, there was a little bit of change, and that's the exact change that happened.
But it was also to help with the added trees and nature to like, for that pond, to kind of reduce any runoff. And I think it was one of the issues.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is correct.
And I would say too, just to keep us at the right level when we're looking at a zoning or changing conditions like this, it's not our role to determine, and we don't have to be 100% comfortable with whether we think that stormwater detention is going to work or not. We don't have to worry at this point whether, as long as the parking that they've got shown on this concept plan meets the code, then we're fine without knowing, even if the number of spaces changes a little, we're okay with that at this point because we're still dealing with the concept, okay? We don't have to be 100% sure, and we don't have to have, the applicant doesn't have to have all the studies done yet, because this is, that's tens of thousands of dollars for them to do, and they're not gonna do all of that work until they know that they've got a project they can move forward with. So our role is to look at the land use, the land parcel, and is it an appropriate use of that land? And then to put enough conditions and restrictions on it outside of our code area, outside of what will get caught in the code, to make sure that, that we get what we want as far as the city goes for long-term planning. All of the specifics of stormwater and the specifics of parking and the specifics of all of that stuff will be handled when they turn in their final construction drawings and it goes through plan review. The engineer looks at everything, the city compares it to make sure they met all the code requirements, and all of that stuff is done before they can proceed. So that's where that kind of technical stuff gets caught.
Just for your information, the stormwater plans of the construction sites up to like 60% of plans now. That's how hard it is with the regulations that the state sets based by the feds to make the stormwater work. It's become, since I started, it was like 3 pages. Now it's like 45, almost 60%. So this is where they spend a lot of time and money in making the project work.
Okay. All right. So that's it for the regular business meeting. Any correspondence? Oh, yes. Thank you, Matt. I want to let y'all know that last month at the DDA meeting, the regular DDA meeting, Angie, who is the property manager at Cobblestone, met with a potential renter there at the office suites who was coming out of the Gwinnett Entrepreneur Center. That led to a conversation she had with Greg Goebel and Dave, I forgot Dave's last name, and Dave, who runs the center over in Lawrenceville. She had a conversation with them and she invited them to the DDA meeting. And they came to you last month. And so they explained, Gwinnett Entrepreneur Center, it's supported by Gwinnett County, all of that stuff. And so they, like the next day or two, they invited Matt and Mercy, Jan, and I went over to the center there in Lawrenceville and met with them and learned more about their programming, got to tour the center, and all of that stuff. So, I knew it's been really great stuff going on over there. I just hadn't had an opportunity to see it. So we talked with them a little bit about possibly doing some programming here, and Dave said they've actually done several things at Thrive. They've held some different sessions there, so they're already familiar with all of that stuff. So we're looking forward to potentially creating something as, what they were kind of talking about with the DDA was that maybe they could partner with the DDA to provide some kind of rent incentives for anyone coming out of the Entrepreneur Center into Cobblestone. You know, maybe a reduced term of rent, or I don't know if they could do rent reductions or something like that for a period of time. Just to help those businesses, you know, funnel them out somewhere. So that'll be conversations that DDA will have with Women Entrepreneur Center. So just wanted to let y'all know that we had that meeting, and really positive. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, we're just glad that they're willing to think of us.
So that was, yeah, I think a good development. City Attorney's report.
We will need for personnel and
All right, so first discussion item, we'll talk about the millage rate and the rollback rate. We're just going to talk some fundamentals, and then Melissa can try to get super complicated with the state. This is a we're going to boil this down to really simple so that you get what the concept of a rollback rate is, because you're going to hear that term all the time, and no one ever understands it. So, Carrie, do you want to explain?
Absolutely not.
So, let's talk, first of all, we're just keep it real basic on how property taxes are calculated, okay? If you have, under this first example for 375, did everybody get that? Everybody has this sheet? If you look at the first example on a $375,000 home value calculation, skip to the second line where it says proposed. If the fair market value of the property is $375,000, the property tax rate, or the assessed value that gets calculated on taxes, is 40% of that number. That's just the way it's calculated, okay? So that means the taxable property value is $150,000, okay? It's just the 375 times 40%. You get down to the $150,000, and then you multiply that by whatever millage rate we set, okay? So we're planning, and what we've been discussing on here is to keep the millage rate the same at 4.0 mils, okay? So the property tax total on that 375 house would be $600, okay? Now, if that property does not, if that assessed value does not change on that property this year, and everybody's already gotten their assessment notices, right? So you know whether your property went up or went down. If your property value did not change, then at 4 mils, your property tax collection will not change, okay? However, we have to look at, so that's on an individual property, okay? And in fact, if your property, if your assessed value went down, then at 4 mils, your property taxes are actually going to be less this year than they were last year, okay? Which is what happened to me. My property went down $30,000 or $40,000. So at 4 mils, I'm going to pay less Snellville tax this year than I did last year. Okay, everybody follow me so far? Okay, what happens though is the state requires us to look at the total tax digest, which just means the total value of all of the property tax parcels in the city. It includes commercial and residential. Okay, so it's everybody all together, one big number. Okay? And they determine what was new growth, so a new development that came online, a new building that got built counts as new growth. That gets carved away. okay? And then they look at existing properties that have been there, and they look at the total across the board. Did that assessed value of all of those properties go up? Okay? If all of those assessed values of those properties went up, then across the board, if we leave our 4 mills the same, then we multiply that 4 mills times that increased property value, and we're gonna collect across the board more property taxes than we did last year. Okay? Even though, when you look underneath all of that total, individual properties, some will have gone up and some will have gone down, and some will have not changed. Okay? But we have to come up, back up here to the total and say, what was the total change? When you look at that total, we have to calculate, under state law, we have to calculate a millage rate that says, what millage rate would we need to collect the exact same amount of taxes as we collected last year on this value of properties? Okay? So instead of 4 mills, we would have had to calculate a lower millage rate in order to collect the same amount of taxes. You follow me? So under this scenario, under our scenario, right now, on that $375,000 house, in order, we would have to roll back the millage rate to 3,951, not 4. Okay? In order for across the board us to collect the same amount in property taxes as we did last year. Okay? So if you looked at my property, at 4 mills, I'd be paying exactly the same. With a rollback rate, I'd actually be paying less. No, I'm sorry. With my property tax decreasing, or my property value decreasing, at 4.0 mills, I'm already paying less taxes. And if we went with the rollback rate, I'd be paying even a little less taxes. Okay? So if we choose not to go with that overall rollback rate of 3.91 or 3,951 mills, then the state requires us to proclaim that we're increasing taxes. And that is what you have been seeing on the news. Norman sent me a clip from today at the Noon News. Channel 2 announced that we were raising taxes 1.24%. But it's because of that rollback rate. Okay, because we're not rolling it back that, what is that? Yeah, to 0.04%, because we're not rolling it back to that. When you look at that $375,000 house without the rollback, somebody, if their property tax went up, you know, they're looking at $7 more in taxes at 1.24%. The difference in the rollback rate and the millage rate that we're choosing. Okay. So, and then they, Matt and Melissa provide an example with a more expensive house as well. Same thing, but you're looking at between $7 and $10. But again, that tax is only going to go up for somebody. Their taxes individually are only going to go up if their property assessment went up. So that's not everybody in this city, because I know mine went down. And I know several people that went down. So, where did I lose somebody?
You did, but I have 2 questions
Yes.
for clarification.
Yes.
So, one, that means the city of Snellville itself did not actually we did not raise any taxes.
Not at the council
We did.
level.
No.
Yeah, we
Not
did not.
by action.
And I know I asked you that question before, but just to make, good points, like our budget set, it's not something we coming back telling our citizens, we raising you one. That's not, based off everything you're saying, it's not a responsibility that we doing. I understand the millage rate, So this is the second question, and it might seem odd, but the second question for me would be, if we roll back, it sounds like we lose the ability to collect the property taxes for this year based off the property assessments?
We don't lose, well, we would lose that differential, you know, if property values overall did go up, then, yeah, if we do a rollback, then we won't collect that little bit of extra tax in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's two parts of the property tax, the millage rate, which you all control, and then the assessments, which the county controls.
yeah, we don't control that part of
That
it.
was gonna be my third question, but thanks. So that assessment though, when we get that in the mail, that's county driven.
Yes.
So unless
You can't change it.
I'm gonna say you can't change. I had a friend who wrote in to try to ask for a reassessment for the
Right.
citizen. Our job is then to ask for that reassessment so we can get the evaluation we believe is fair market value. If we don't do that, then they enact, because that's what happened to me. And on the back end, what I look at it like is, I might like it a little bit because when I go sell my house, I can then, you know, use those numbers to collect as much money as possible, even if I know my house only worth $250. If we didn't, okay,
Yeah.
got it. That makes sense.
Typically in the world of property taxes, typically your tax assessment is not really what your sales price can be on the house. I had a friend who, I was a little shocked, but had come up to me thinking this was all a conspiracy between the county and the city to lower his property value, that we were gonna come in now and buy up all of his neighborhood at these reduced values and kick everybody out. It's like, well, no, it doesn't work that way. This isn't we're setting your value and then we're gonna come and take your house for that value. And so when you go to sell your house, and he goes, well, they're gonna use that number for my sales price. And I said, no, they don't. I said, you're gonna get a real estate appraiser who's gonna come out and look at all the comparables in the area. And that's gonna determine your sales price and the condition of your house and, you know, curb appeal, all of those other things will factor into your sales price, not the tax assessed value. But I will say that I think the assessed values have gotten a lot closer, you know, I think with the advent of so much stuff going online. It's easier even for the county assessors to get comps. But that is not what your sales price is. This is your tax assessed value. The other things that I would say on this too is that we used to live in a world where property tax assessments could go up by $100,000 a year. You know, that happened to me several years ago. My property, $100,000 in 1 year. And that puts a big hurt on somebody. But if you remember, the city, the citizens all voted at the state level for House Bill 581. And we held the 3 public hearings and all our citizens said, you need to go ahead and opt in on that. So we opted in. And now the state legislature came back and said, well, if you didn't opt in, you're opting in now. We're making you opt in. But if you remember what House Bill 581 said, was that your property value cannot go up more than the rate of inflation in a year. So you're not gonna see those huge increases in property values every year either. And,
Only on residential.
yes, on residential. You could still see that on
Homesteaded.
homesteaded properties, yes. Thank you for the correction. And all of that goes out the window in another year because of the new laws that they passed that I still don't know what's the final result of the new laws that have passed. So all bets are off for the next year as well. But this is where we are now.
One of the questions I have, can you, simple math, just educate me, the 1.24%, can you give me the equation that gave that 1.24%?
I can't.
It's
Melissa,
600 divided by 592 minus 1.
600 divided by, okay, so, and then minus 1. Thank you. So my next question is, the 5-year says 1.07 on the tax budget. Should that not be the same, or can you explain to me what that number is?
The state,
So this is just an example of someone's individual home. This is the
Right.
aggregate of everything.
and this aggregate, again, is state mandated, every single calculation line item.
So the one,
They
so
never
this,
match.
it never, yeah, okay, thank you for explaining that to me. Okay, so on this where it says property tax increase 1.24%, it is not going to match the 1.07 on this tax budget. And can you just elaborate, explain to me why? Thank you.
Well, because this is an individual home, right? So these numbers are taken there. So these numbers here, these
Yes, sir.
1.24, 300, 375, 525,
This is just an
really
example.
for an individual to understand.
This is an example for us.
So when we have a notice of property tax increase, those are the same numbers. So this is an example?
No, that's what the state has us publish. That's directly from the state's manual on property tax that they publish every year as the
Right.
advertisement that we have to publish.
Mm-hmm.
And so we calculate that, we get these average numbers from the county on what we're supposed to use.
Yes, sir.
And we just do this formula. What you have here, 40% for market value times that, and that's the percentage you get. This is the aggregate of everything commercial and residential.
Gotcha.
That is just residential. That's just for, to break it down for residents to understand a little bit easier than trying to put this 5-year history
Right.
and comprehend.
Okay, so this helps. But you're-
So it's part of the, gosh, I don't know. What was that Bill of Rights for Taxpayers passed in the state years ago? This is part of that to help inform people as to what exactly property taxes are, how it impacts them. And so we're required to publish very specific language and ads so that the citizens are aware of what the impact is of the millage rate.
So over the last 5 years, our taxes have been going up incrementally according to this tax digest, correct?
In total, yes,
In total, over 5 years.
yes, because property values have gone up.
And-
Or we had new property come online. Like, we had vacant property that got developed.
So in the equation, we, the city, we have control over one variable in the equation. So if we wanted the taxes to go down, we can do that by adjusting the millage rate.
And that is the role, that purpose of the rule, is to balance it.
So if we're holding it steady, and over the past 5 years it's constantly increasing, what can we do, or what services can be cut or adjusted to make sure that the tax rate is held at a steady amount, so that it's not constantly increasing? What type of relief can we give our citizens? That's just a question. We're holding it at 4 mills.
Well, that's the budget process, and you have to figure out in the budget that we went through what you cut out.
So can we, you probably have to get it to me later, but what can we show the citizens they're receiving the value of their dollars as our taxes are constantly going up? So then that way we can have that conversation. This was my first time doing the budget, but we definitely want to look at that. Because every year for the past 5 years, our taxes have been going up. While we're keeping them in
Well, we're keeping the millage rate safe. It's going up because people's homes are worth more.
More
And more
inventory.
is online.
But
So we're not raising
And
taxes.
we've had
We
new
have-
homes built.
We have a variable in the equation.
Mhm,
So while the other variables we do not have control over,
mhm.
the one that we do have control over can help make some relief for our residents. That's all. And so I would like to show the citizens over the last 5 years what have their dollars been, how their dollars have been spent, so they can see the quality of life and the value in this tax increase.
Is that public?
Yes.
That's public. Anybody can look at
So it's not very specific. So I can talk to you more about it because that is a very good question that people have been asking me, and I would like to see that answered as well. Where's the value?
So I'm gonna have the value, right, for them is probably understanding first the assessment side. the last 5 years is not based off, by keeping the millage rate, it sounds like the same, they receive value. Because if we would have raised, even before we got on board, the millage rate up, right, to the 4.1. I kind of remember those meetings back then. Then I believe the average citizen taxes and all those things would have went up even more. By holding the millage rate the same at the level in which, at the time that we controlled and they controlled at the time, what that did was actually reduce our taxes from going up like other cities, maybe a little bit higher. But it's important that for this average citizen to understand that lies in the assessment, which if I'm not mistaken is based off the county. Or
Yeah,
not.
but I think what Kat's question is, you know, what value are people getting? And I think some of this was addressed in our budget process, that our expenses have gone up. And the main area where our expenses have gone up is in salaries. We've put a lot of money in increased police salaries to keep our police department full. We've had to increase public works salaries and park salaries because we couldn't get people to keep jobs there. So that provides, the public works obviously is helping with all the stormwater issues and the day-to-day maintenance of the city. So I think we see a lot of value. It's not glamorous, but there's a lot of value in having that department fully functioning. Also helps to maintain the recycling center, which I think is a value for everyone. So I think if you just run through the budget and see where our expenses are, I feel like there's plenty of value that can be demonstrated to the citizens. The code enforcement, we hired another full-time code enforcement officer.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, those are all of those things, right? Those are all of those things where
Rec center.
it's not that in the past 5 years, we haven't added a whole bunch of new services, but we've increased, I mean, the costs obviously have increased, and we've tried to manage those costs while increasing what was vitally important to us, which was public safety and keeping our police officers, keeping our police department staffed up and trained. So I think there's plenty of ways that we can demonstrate what we've done with the money that we have without increasing the millage rate. And we have lived off some of the increases in the, not only some of the tax assessments that have gone up, but we also get a good bump for new properties, like I said, that come online. You know, we had several new developments that came out of the ground, new houses being built. All of that adds to that digest. It looks like it's,
So it's,
we're
like
increasing.
I said, it's a good question to have because they're on the backs of the sanitation going up and now all of this, so the questions are being asked. And I definitely need concrete facts to report back to the citizens. So thank you.
Matt, I just wanted to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember you're saying that one of the challenges of doing the budget was the fact that we have to have the budget in by a certain time and that the assessments come out at a different time. And so you're playing a little bit of a guessing game.
We're playing a lot of a guessing game now. It used to be that we would get the digest and have the millage rate at least by the end of June before we finalize the budget. Now look, we're in August and we're just starting our public hearings on it. We're just now getting this information, and some of this is because of all the changes the state mandated. You know, it's taken the systems that have had to have been created on the fly to get the information to the level where you could implement 581 and do all of these things. Now, you know, the county, it's pushed the county out in a month or two, which pushes us out a month or two. So next year is going to be even worse because you're going to have to figure out the budget and you won't know what the millage rate or the rollback rate is going to be until 2 months after the budget gets passed. So we'll have fun with that. All right, let's move on because we've got, we're at 7:15 and we need to do an exec session. Matt, updated on the projects?
Yeah, I'll be brief. So executive session, get that information out. We talked about the millage rate there, town center construction. So Jacobs is still working on the market analysis, so we'll share that with everybody when we get that back from them. The July movie night, we had about 500 attendees, which is great. Full, Grove Green was full, and people were enjoying Zootopia 2. So the next event that we'll have out there is on the 20th. It's a Downtown Tunes concert. It will be a group that we've had before that was well received.
Very good.
Jan, what was their name again?
The happy hour.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour. So please come out and enjoy that time there. Package sales, I think we'll let Jake talk about that in executive session. Briscoe Park, so we had a snag here with the, I'll be quick. So with the steel framing for the pre-engineered metal building, anytime you have framing like that, steel framing, you get what you call shop drawings. Shop drawings are drawings that are provided by the manufacturer, in this case of the steel. And they made some changes last minute. They did not communicate to their general contractor on the way that the steel members bolt to the concrete there. So they have 4 holes drilled, but in the shop drawings now have 6 there. So we're working through some changes on that. I don't know the exact impact yet of that, but it's not great.
Is that our cost or their cost?
Certainly not our cost, but I mean, it will take them longer to get all that worked out. The goal is not to have to order steel. It is to find a way to make it work. We're going to drill holes in, epoxy them in, and make it work that way. But I will have more to update on in the next meeting there. On the other side, on the office side, they schedule inspections for plumbing and wall insulation and metal framing, so we'll start getting those inspected, start covering those things up. So the good news is they can continue to work on the office side while they work out this gym piece there. And they also will begin closing the drywall, which is a good thing, which means that everything is in the walls that it needs to be. They can start painting and we'll get some power on, and they can get air conditioning going for moisture and all that. And start getting it functional. North and Wisteria, again, just they have a couple last things they got to do. We're withholding money from them until they get it done. So the report that I've been getting will be out this week to take care of those things. We'll be done with that project. It'll be closed out. The things that they have to work are minor landscaping things, nothing that impacts the actual functioning of the intersection. So all of that will change. Most folks won't even know when they complete the task that they did that.
Matt, you know I touched bases with you about the grant.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. During the work session, the mayor and city council of Snellville, Georgia, may amend announced that certain matters should be discussed in the closed session of the meeting and ask council to advise the city with respect to closing the meeting. City attorney Jim Crowley advised